All right. So, hi, thanks for joining us. So my name's Kevin Kurtz. I am one of the Arbordale authors. I've been with them for about 10 years now, and I'm going to be talking to you guys about school visits. I've also been doing school visits for about 10 years. In the last few years, I've been averaging about 30 live school visits a year. And I also have started doing Skype school visits. And the first couple of years I did that, I was able to visit with over 70 schools in states all over the country and even in other countries. So I'm going to be giving you guys some tips from my experiences about how to set up school visits, what I typically do during them, how to do book sales and things like that. And hopefully Jennifer will be able to come in too. If you have any questions, there is an option to do, if you look on your screen, you should see a group chat option. If you aren't having your video come out, you can use that to type in a question, and I will try to respond to them as whenever I can. Or if you're on the video, you can, and you with your microphone on, you can also chime in that way. So to start off, why do school visits? There's definitely a few different reasons that school visits are really beneficial. One of the main things I really enjoy about doing school visits is it actually connects me with kids. Like, one of the things I've always found interesting about children's books is through the whole process of writing and creating them, almost all the feedback you're getting is from adults, even though you're writing it for children. And by doing school visits, I'm actually going into the schools and seeing how kids are responding to my books. And that has been hugely beneficial, seeing what they like, what they don't like, what kind of things are raising questions that I wrote about, and also hearing from them. They will actually give me ideas for books, and they're not always great. Sometimes they're like fictional stories about bananas and things like that, as one kid told me a couple months ago. But still, sometimes they say like, "Oh, I'd really like to read a book about this," and then when I think about it, I'm like, I would actually like to write a book about that. So that is all really helpful. Not just kids, though, are you getting to connect with. It's also connecting you with teachers and school librarians, and getting to talk to them about what's going on in the schools and what their needs are. I regularly hear from the teachers and librarians I talk to, like, we have to teach this unit. Like, just this week, I had a teacher tell me we have a unit on deserts. Do you have any books on deserts? So it's also, again, at finding out what they think about my books, what's working for them, and also getting ideas from them as well. But another great benefit of doing school visits is it can help you make money in a way far beyond what at least I've been able to make on my royalties. So it's allowing me to spend a lot more time, have more time to do writing, because I can make a substantial chunk of income by doing school visits. Some authors charge, well, when I see the amounts they charge, I'm usually kind of amazed at how much people ask for. Some authors are asking anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000 for a one-day school visit. I am definitely not that high, but still, it is a big help by doing these school visits. It's also a great way to sell your books. It's the best form of marketing as far as actually getting people interested in your books. And you can do the book sales yourselves. Sometimes schools will have you do it through a local bookstore, but typically I can sell a good chunk of books during a school visit. And I also have noticed, well, I haven't done this in a while, but if you go to Amazon.com's page for your books, you can see its sales ranking. And I always notice, well, the last few times I looked, after I do school visits, I always get a big bump. So some of the kids who didn't buy books during my visit will talk about it afterwards to their parents, and I'm assuming that's what that bump is from, is they decide to buy them afterwards. And then one other thing that's great about school visits is it makes you feel like a rock star. I notice all the time, like when I go to school visits, I'm almost positive these kids never heard of me before until their teachers told them that I was coming to visit. But when I walk in the door, I'll be walking down the hall and passing kids, and then I hear them whispering behind me, "There's the author!" Like, they're so excited to have me there. And that is always a great feeling, too. So school visits are definitely worth doing for a variety of reasons. So as far as what do you do during a school visit, I think there's many different things you can do during a school visit. It says there are authors. when I started, I did not know what I was supposed to do. I had a feeling I might have to wear costumes and talk in funny voices, which I wasn't comfortable with. But what I did is because my background was working at an aquarium and doing education at an aquarium, like for field trip groups, is something similar to what I did with them. Except where in the aquarium, I'm showing them some of the animals and I'm sharing some interesting things as like getting the kids to observe them. What I started doing was reading through my books. I had them projected on the screen as an ebook, so it was easy to see the illustrations. And then as I was going through, I kept stopping, and then I would ask them questions to get them to look more closely at the illustrations, think about what I wrote, and then go into a little more depth about the topic. And that worked out really well. I mean, everybody at Arbordale is writing about science and nature, and I have yet to meet a kid who's not into animals or who finds science, if when you're sharing stories, really, really interesting. So it's an easy way to connect with them. And then over time, I've added a couple other elements to my school visits. I usually start with a brief introduction where I just tell a little bit about myself and how I became a children's author. And what I decided to do to help, because part of the reason schools do author visits is they want the kids to realize that authors are actually like real human beings that are not that different from them. They're not like these magic beings who produce books from on far. Like they're actually real people. This is something they could aspire to. And so in my intro, I basically talk about what I was like as a kid and how some of the interests I had as a kid stayed with me as an adult and kind of came together to having me be a children's author. So like an interest in reading and writing and animals and science, all those things tie together. I show them some photos of me as a kid, which is always a big hit when they see what an awful dresser I was at age 5, which was my mom's fault, not mine. But that definitely helps them to make that connection that not only am I a real person, I was once very much like they are right now. That helps. Then I go into the book. I definitely recommend projecting your book on a screen, unless you're talking to a really small group. If you're talking to a small group, holding the book up is definitely a way of having kind of an intimate connection with them and turning the pages. But typically, school visits, you're going to be talking to large groups, and projecting it makes it so much easier to see the illustrations. It's also much easier to read the books instead of trying to hold it up and try to get everybody to get a quick glance at it. And so I definitely recommend that. And then one other thing too that's been a big part of my school visits, particularly in the last couple of years, as Common Core has kicked in, there's a much bigger emphasis on nonfiction and teaching both reading and writing in nonfiction for elementary kids. And so schools are looking for somebody who can help kids understand how to do that and also get them excited about it. So I do, after I read the book, I do a quick interactive discussion about how I write nonfiction. Like I go through the steps with them, and it basically just ask like, what do you think I had to do to write this book? So, and usually they've been learning enough that they'll say research, like, well, what do you think I do to do research? So it keeps going back and forth. That's definitely important, I think, in doing your school visits, is to try to make it as interactive as possible, to give them an opportunity to talk while you're talking, because that helps keep their attention. If I just talk the entire, like I typically do 45 minutes. If I talk the entire 45 minutes, I would lose the kids. So it's good to keep it interactive. And then I wrap up with a question and answer period where I try to keep 10 minutes at the end where I can just answer their questions. And they can be all over the place. But typically I'm always amazed at how thoughtful their questions are. A lot of kids are interested in the animals I wrote about, so I'll get follow-up questions about that. But I get a lot of questions about writing and being a writer. And then the occasional very random question like yesterday I did Skype is I had a kid ask me like, which mythical creature do I believe in? Which I don't even know what that means, but I tried my best to answer it. So that's just one way of doing it. I know a lot of authors who do school visits talk a lot about the process the whole process from writing the book to having it with a publisher, like all the steps involved, all the people involved, and try to do it in an interactive way. Um, and some of them focus, again, like it's more about the process of writing, but because I'm writing about a topic that's interesting to kids and it helps the teachers reach standards, which is an important way to get yourself into the classroom, is by showing the teachers and the schools how you're going to help them reach their state education standards. So I always point out, like, by reading this book and talking about it, I can help you reach these science standards that your kids have to learn this year. And I've found that makes me more attractive, and it's something the kids enjoy because they often don't get to hear, when they're learning these standards, they hear about generally, but not like specific stories related to animals, like what I present in my books and then in my school visits. So that's just an example of what you can do with your school visit. But the other trick is marketing yourself, like actually getting these schools to be aware that you are available and get them interested in having you come in. There's a few things I do that I've found effective. I would say the most important thing is to have a website for yourself. I'm pretty sure everybody does. It's kind of like the standard thing if you're a published author to have a website, but definitely a place where they could find out a little bit more about you, about your books, and also just have a page specifically about school visits, what you do during them, how much you charge, things like that, so that if a teacher hears your name or comes across your book, they can quickly look you up, and also just where you are and where you're willing to go to do school visits. They can look you up, find out your info, and then I have my email address right on my school visit page, so they can send me an email and start talking to me and figuring out if this can work out with our schedules and everything else. That is definitely an important thing to have, but I don't think it works. Rare is you're not going to book many school visits if you're passively hoping that they are going to find your website. So you definitely have to be a little more proactive to get your name out there. One of the most effective things I have been doing is sending emails out directly to schools and places where I'm willing to go. The way I got the emails initially was Arbordale, like whenever they do their shows, collects emails from teachers and media specialists and other people that are there. And I started using that. That list has continued to grow. And because I not using, I don't know if they use Constant Contact or another program, but they have a program that's automatically, and let me stop for a second. If you guys can mute, I can hear myself echoing back from somebody's screen. So if you could just hit mute on your screen for now, that will probably make the audio a little bit better. I'm not sure where it's coming from. So it's still coming through, but I'll keep going. So I started off with the Arbordale list, but eventually, like, I was getting so many emails bouncing back because it was so out of date that I decided, like, well, I don't know if this is really the way to go. So I have been doing the very tedious thing of looking up every school in an area where I want to go. And the email I look for first is the media specialist, the librarian. Most schools, that's who is going to book a school visit. Some schools, the principal does it, or the reading specialist will do it. So you may want to find those emails too. But I've been making lists, keeping them organized by geographic region. And then now I'm doing it 3 times a year. I'll send out email blasts to let them know that I'm available. Some schools are scheduling next year's school visits right now. So it's good to send something out in April or May to the places you want to do school visits, to those emails letting them know you're available. I also do it right at the beginning of the school year because that's when some schools are thinking about it. And then there's definitely a lot of schools that are waiting kind of the last minute. It seems like most schools want to schedule their school visits in March, April, and May. So I'll also send one right after the holiday break in January. And typically, like I said, it's been working out well for me. I'm booking on average about 30 school visits. This year, I'm actually going to have over 40. This has been the best year I've had so far for it. When I send those out, I just have a very short email that says I'm available. I write nonfiction books. I show I have a image of all my titles. I will mention that I am can help them meet their standards, which will definitely get their attention. And then I attach a flyer that has more information. And what I'll do is I'll send, I'm going to share all the documents I use with Heather, so she can share them with you if you want to just look at them and see if there's anything in there that can be helpful. When you email all these media specialists, you do not want to be spam. So the way not to be spam is have your name on it, so you actually identify the real person that is sending this. You're supposed to have a mailing address on it. I'm not exactly sure why, but I have a P.O. box I just put on there. And just have a little note at the bottom that says, if you do not want to receive these emails, just email me back with the word unsubscribe. And if you do those three things, even though you're like finding their emails off the internet, you won't be considered spam. Couple other things that are helpful. Children's book festivals are also a way to get your name out there to do school visits. I've only done a handful of children's book festivals, but all of them I've met teachers and media specialists who are coming to them to meet authors that they think might be good fits for their students, and I've gotten a few school visits out of that, so that's always helpful. So I bring a flyer with me, a printed flyer that I can give to them that has my info, my contact info, and some information about my books and me and my school visits. And also what's been huge is word of mouth. Since I've started doing school visits, the schools I go to will tell other schools, like other teachers or librarians they know, and so I've been getting more and more visits that way. Obviously, like, you're not going to get word of mouth until you actually do school visits, so if you haven't done many before, I would recommend, like, it seems like everybody knows a teacher in their circle of friends or family or friends, and you may just want to ask, like, can I just come to your classroom and do a school visit? Like, here's my books, and most teachers would be excited for that opportunity, and it gives you a chance to get some practice, but also then if they're happy with what you do, then they'll hopefully be telling other people, and that can help getting the word spread out there. So that's some of how I got started, is just doing it basically as a favor, like, that way if I was terrible, like, nobody was giving me money for it, but it was, like I said, good practice, and a way that people started getting to know me, and that helped me get my name out there. So if you do get a school visit, so as much as possible, I'm trying to do school visits locally where I can sleep in my own house, and so I try to get them within like an hour and a half drive from my house if I can, but I do go to other places. So if I go out of state, what I try to do is set aside an entire week and see if I can book the entire week, Monday through Friday. As I keep doing that, that gets easier to do. That's another thing. Like, the first time I did it, like in New England, because I don't live too far away from there, I just sent my email out. Didn't know if anyone was going to be interested, but actually booked most of the week right away. So yeah, just taking a chance like that. Sometimes things do happen. But typically, yeah, we look at our calendars, we schedule a day, and then I make sure that we are communicating somewhat regularly to make sure that everything's prepared on both sides. So what I have found is, what I used to do is I had one long email that listed everything that we needed to discuss, that they needed to provide me answers with, or let me know what they were thinking. And what I kept finding is people weren't really reading it. They'd read parts of it, but then they'd send me emails back like, so what about this and what about this? And I'm like, it's in that email. Like, well, I wouldn't say that. I just think that. But so now I break that up into 3 emails that just talk about a couple things each. So I'll send one out, and then when I get a response from that, I send the next one out, and then when I get a response from that, I get the next one out. So some of the things I'm talking about are my technology needs. Basically, all I need for my presentations is a computer I can plug a flash drive into and hooked up to projector or interactive whiteboard, but I definitely want them to know that up front. I asked them if they want to do book sales with me. I send them some information that can help them get their students prepared. So I think one of the things that helps having a successful school visit is making it integrating it as much as possible into their normal curriculum, their normal lessons. So I will send an email that lists some things that they can access for free that can help their kids get to know me a little better, my books, and that they can use to start thinking about my visit. Two of the things come straight from the Arbordale website. So one of the things I found has been really helpful is sending each school I go to the link to Arbordale's site license for all their ebooks, and they can sign up their entire school for a free month's trial. And so that gives all the teachers and the students access to my books as ebooks, which I don't know how many students take it for a month. So I don't know if all the students take advantage of it, but that means the teachers are more likely to be reading my books to the students beforehand, which is going to help them already start thinking about how is this fitting into our curriculum, what kind of questions would we want to ask. But it's also marketing my books. So for book sales, they're like, oh, I really like that book. Maybe I could get a signed copy and I'll buy it that day. So that's helpful. Also, Arbordale, for all our books, has the teacher resources, the packet, the PDF packet, and I always tell the teachers about that. So there's all these other resources that can help you make this a part of your classroom. So it's not just like they're getting the day off from school or an hour off from school because the author's here, but it's actually they're building up to it. They're incorporating into their lessons, and then when I'm there, I'm helping to reinforce or providing them with some new things that hopefully will expand their learning, and then afterwards, the teachers will hopefully keep building off of that. So it has bigger impact than just like we're excited because somebody who wrote a book is talking to us today. And then also I make sure we decide which of my books I'm going to focus on. Now that I have more books out there, I typically do different books for different grade levels, which is definitely nicer for me so I don't end up keep saying the same thing 5 times in a row. Not that I do. Like if I'm talking to kindergartners about one of my books, I'm going to be talking at a different level than I'm talking to the 5th graders, but that gives me a little more variety. And I think the schools like that too, like having different books out there, they can pick the ones they think are the best fit for what their students are learning that year. So I do try to do book sales with each of my school visits, and I've been handling my own book sales for almost since I started doing this. Like when I started off, I directed the schools to Arbordale's sales department and had them order the book straight through them. And then Arbordale's like, well, why don't you sell them? You can make more money that way. And I looked into it. I'm like, oh, this isn't that hard to do. Like basically all I had to do is in my own state, I have to have a sales license, which is really easy to get. I think it cost me like $50. I got the application, filled it out. I'm just listed as a sole proprietor of my own business, and my business's name is my name. So that's really easy to set up. If you are doing book sales in your state, you'll have to think about sales tax. Though, if like a school is buying the books directly from you, most of them are tax exempt, and they'll let you know that. And if they do, they should give you a form that says we're tax exempt, and you don't have to do sales tax with that. But that's really easy to do. If you are traveling out of state to do school visits, it depends on the state, but a lot of states, because you don't have a sales location in the state, you don't have to worry about doing sales tax there. You'll want to look that up for each state. Like I know I went to California, And that was not the case there. I had to get a temporary sales license. To some states, you can do that. And if you ever ship books, just like if you order something from Amazon and you don't live in New York, like I unfortunately do, because they have a bit, they have an office here, and so I have to pay sales tax because they do. But in other states where you don't have one, you don't have to worry about sales tax. So I have an order form that I send to the schools, and they distribute it to the teachers and have the kids bring it home to their parents, and then they fill out which books they want, and turn it into the librarian or whoever's organizing it on their end. They email me the numbers. I tell them to send it to me at least a week in advance. It usually takes about 4 business days to get something shipped from Arbordale. And then I email Elma at Arbordale and say I need this many books, and then she ships those to me. And then I can bring them with me. Like some authors will, everything has to be on that deadline, and that's the number of books they order. But because so many, this happens at every school, like people are always late with their orders. They may get 10 more book orders or even 20 occasionally. And I'm like, well, it doesn't bother me. So I always order extra books and bring extras with me so I can accommodate those late orders. That again is a personal choice. Like it also means sometimes I have a big stack of books at my house that I'm going to be holding on to a while, but I always assume like, well, I'm doing other school visits. At some point I'll be selling those. One last thing I was going to share with you is Skype visits. So that was something I started learning about, I don't know, like 5 years ago, and I put it out there on my website that I'm available to do Skype visits, but I really wasn't seeing any, wasn't getting any interest on that. But then I got an email from Arbordale that they had signed up with the Skype in the Classroom site, which is now on the Microsoft Education website, because Microsoft owns Skype, and they had partnered with them, and they were looking for some of their authors and illustrators to set up a profile on the website. And I'm like, well, I'll do it. I've been interested in this type of programs. So I put my profile up there and almost immediately started getting responses. And then that first year did about 70 Skype visits, like I said, in states all around. So the Microsoft Education website is basically like Match.com for Skype visits. So anyone who wants to do Skype visits, like children's authors and illustrators, can set up a profile and put out this is the type of lesson I'm going to do. And schools and teachers who want to do Skypes also put their profiles on. And basically, I just have my profile up there. I'm not like looking for the teachers who I think are interested in what I'm doing. I wait for them to find me. But it works really well. I did get lucky because when I signed up, the community wasn't nearly as big as it is now. So it's a lot harder to find my profile, I found, in the last year or so than it was. I think I started doing that 3 years ago. 3 years ago, I was much more visible. Now I'm like buried under so many other profiles. But still, every year I'm getting new people. I get a big boost because in, I think it's February, they do a special literacy month promotion, and Arbordale is a big partner in that. So because I'm listed as one of Arbordale's authors, I become much more visible when they're doing that promotion, and that's when I get a lot. And then I also just noticed like they're doing Ocean Month. They're doing an ocean promotion. That since some of my books are about oceans, I'm listed as somebody who teaches about the ocean, and that's given me a bump too. So you can definitely be found if you're on there, particularly if you link yourself to Arbordale, because they have a pretty big presence on there. And then that gives you the opportunity to meet a lot of kids that you might not ever go to their state, but you can still talk to them that way. What I do for that, I offer to do a half-hour Skype program to any school for free each school year. And I figured at a half hour, it's not that much of a time. It doesn't take up that much of my time. I'm doing marketing So it gives me opportunity to talk to a lot of kids. If a school wants me to do more than one, then I charge like $25 for each additional half hour. Some schools take me up on that. A lot of them just do the free one. And then I try to keep it, because it's free, I try to keep what I do is the amount of time I have to put down to a minimum. So I have one email I send, like, this is what you can do to prepare. And then when I do the Skype, I again do a quick intro. I use the share screen option to show some of the photos like I do for my live visits. And then basically after that, I just answer their questions. So it's kind of like they're interviewing me. And when I send the prep stuff, I direct them to go to my website, check out some of these things, and like get the site license. Which another thing I didn't mention about the site license is if the school does the trial and then decides afterwards they want to sign up for it, you'll actually get a commission from Arbordale for that. So I'm happy to promote that to any of these schools I talk to. And by prepping it, I'm like, have them think about some of the questions you want them to ask that will hit some of the content you're hoping I'll talk about. Most schools do that. And so I usually the whole half hour, there's a lot of times there's more questions than I have time to answer. And at first I was like, this is going to be boring. This is like low resolution image of me talking just like I'm doing with you guys right now. And the kids are just asking me questions, but I've been amazed at the impact that the Skype visits can have. The kids get really excited. They're getting to talk to you. I can see them as I'm talking to them. And so when kids ask questions, I'll say I can comment on things like they're wearing and things like that, which, makes it feel a little bit more like I'm in the room with them. And I found it to be a great way to reach out to a lot more students, to also connect with a lot more teachers. And I can still do book sales through that. So I'll ask the teacher if they want to do book sales. I'll send them an order form. And if they do, the kids can fill it out, and then the teacher can mail me the order forms with the checks, and then I'll ship out the books that they've ordered, and I just add a little extra into the book order form for the shipping costs. Not all schools do that, but enough of them do it that I've been happy with the results from that. So that's pretty much what I had planned on talking about. I'm sure that there may be some things that I didn't cover you might have questions about, so I'd be happy to take questions. So maybe if you want to unmute, if you have a question, if you want to unmute your microphone, hopefully not everybody's going to ask at the same time, but there's not a ton of you, so I'm sure we can figure out how to do this one at a time. Did anyone have any questions you'd like to ask?
I wanted to ask if you charge full retail for the books when you sell them at the schools, or do you give them a little discount?
I started off charging more, but then I started thinking about it, and I'm like, I don't know if that was really working to my advantage. By charging full retail, like I might actually be affecting how many people are buying it. So now I give them a discount. And because, well, one of the benefits of doing the book sales yourself is you're getting your author discount. So even if I knock like $2 or $3 or even like $4 off the hardcovers, I'm still making way more than I would make with the royalties. So I think it's definitely worth giving them a discount. You'll probably get more book sales and your books into more kids' hands.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Any other questions? Again, if you want to ask, just unmute your microphone. I'd be happy to try to answer it. Well, I guess it looks like that's it. So I did record this. Hopefully the recording actually worked. So I'll get that out to Heather so she can make it available if there's something you want to check up on. I will also share some of the things I share with schools, like my flyer and my book order form and some of those logistics emails, just so you can take a look at them. Like, I am not, like, my way is not the way it has to be done, but it may give you some ideas about what will work best for you. But thank you guys for joining on. I hope this was helpful to you. And if you have any questions you think of later, feel free to send out an email. I'll be happy to answer them.
Well, since I'm no one that I'm asking anything, I'll
Okay.
ask you something else. When you travel out of state, do the schools cover your travel costs too?
Oh, yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, that's something I always add on. Um, well, so if like say I'm going somewhere where I can drive, but it's like a 4 hour drive to get to that one school, then yeah, I'll add things for mileage and tolls, and then the hotel costs too. I always add that in. Um, I go to South Carolina every year because I used to live there. And what I do there is I just raise my flat fee a little higher, so I kind of divide up the flight and rental car costs, and then just charge and the mileage costs, and then just charge for the hotels there. Some authors ask a lot more. They'll ask like for meal per diems and things like that. But I figure I gotta eat. I need every day anyway, so I'm not gonna put that extra charge on them. But since I wouldn't normally be traveling here, then yeah, it's expected that you'll add travel costs onto it.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Thanks. Anyone else think of a question before we go?
Yes, one quick question. You
Okay.
obviously put a lot of time and effort into this. Have you found that you're able to concentrate on this solely now, or do you like have another job or other things you have to do as well?
Oh, so like, can I just do book sale or school visits
Sales,
and
school
books?
visit, yeah.
I'm not 100% there yet. Like each year, I'm getting closer.